Welcome to another episode of the Felicia Taylor Arts Legacy Series. I'm Bob Merrill. Today we're talking with the maestro himself, the music director for the Palm Beach Symphony, Gerard Schwarz. Maestro Gerard Schwarz, Jerry to his friends.
And you certainly are a dear friend, so Jerry, for the rest of this talk.
Let's just review a few points of your storied career. At the age of 24, you became the principal trumpet of the New York Philharmonic right out of Juilliard. With the youngest principal ever? Was that?
At that time, there was one younger, and that was Stanley Drucker. For me, it was my dream. Growing up in New York, my home orchestra was the New York Philharmonic. My home conductor was Leonard Bernstein. As a high school student at Performing Arts, I was a subscriber to the New York Philharmonic. I knew the players like people know baseball.
Right.
And so, for the time I was about 12, all I wanted to do was be in the New York Philharmonic. Can you imagine?
Did you ever think you would one day be replacing William Vacchiano?
My teacher. I never thought about it. You know, when you're growing up, you have your dreams. We all have dreams. I love dreams. I talk to students, what's your dream? They're embarrassed. No. Tell me. Well, I'd like to be I remember one kid said, I'd like to be the first flute in the Los Angeles Philharmonic. I said, that's a great dream. And if it doesn't come true, that's okay, because there are lots of other options, right? He said, oh, yes. And he went through all the other options that he had. And I was the same. My dream was to be in the New York Philharmonic, but, you know, my teacher wasn't that old, and I never thought he was going to retire at whatever age he was. And when he did, getting the opportunity even to audition was a big deal.
Talking about dreams, after about 5 years, you were looking for a bigger mountain to climb. And I always liken it to a great actor wanting to direct. You were a great player, and you wanted to conduct. Is that it?
Yes and no. What I really wanted was to get more involved with the great music in a more intimate way. So, for example, growing up the child of two Viennese doctors, I was immersed in great music. You know, German, Austrian music, Beethoven, Brahms, Haydn, Mozart, not Mahler and Bruckner and Wagner. It was all that era of the early part of the 19th century. And that was my upbringing. And so now, as a trumpet player, as you so well know, as being a fine player yourself, the most interesting repertoire we have is late 19th century, 20th century. The early part of the 19th century, Beethoven, Mozart, Haydn, Schubert. If you don't have a great first trumpet, boy, it sure can be a mess. On the other hand, you're not as intimately involved with every phrase and every melody the way a string player would. So what I was interested in really was being more immersed in the great music. And that had nothing to do with not loving playing. I loved playing. I still dream about it many years later. And I love playing in the orchestra. But what I really love is the great music. And as a conductor, I had an opportunity to be more of a part of making those performances, the great works, happen.
Well, you transformed the Seattle Symphony into one of the major symphonies in the country, I think it's fair to say.
It was an interesting time because at the time when I went to Seattle, that was in the mid-'80s, I was music director of the LA Chamber Orchestra, music director of the New York Chamber Symphony, so on two coasts, and I had a couple of music festivals I was running. And I knew my next step had to be with a full-size orchestra. Chamber orchestras have up 30 to 40 players. Full-size orchestras, 80 or 90 players. And at that point, it would have been about 1984, 83, I had 3 offers from emerging orchestras called. They weren't New York or Cleveland or Chicago. Right. They were on the Seattle level. And of the 3, I had a very important manager at the time, Shelley Gold, and Shelley said, whatever you do, you don't go to Seattle. That's terrible. It's death. It's death for anyone. So I went to these 3 orchestras, and they all wanted me, which was very sweet and very nice. And I thought that the orchestra with the most potential was Seattle. So I did what any normal person would do. I took that job and got a new manager. And I was very cautious because my first year I was music advisor. The second year I was principal conductor. It wasn't until my third year that I took music director. And it was a thrill. And so I was there 28 years.
Well, let's talk about the project for which you've won 9 Emmy Awards. And I'm talking about the All-Star Orchestra on PBS. I love this series.
get an audience interested in classical music if they've never heard it. You know, if you've never heard the Beethoven Fifth, it doesn't mean you're going to love it, but you don't even give it a chance. And I wanted to make it so it was free. So public television is free. Not only is it free, you don't even have to have cable. And not only that, but about 95% of the homes in the United States have TV sets. And so public television was my hook. So we've done now 29 shows. And they're each an hour long, and they're television shows. They're not concerts. So in other words, it's not a live concert, an audience, it's just a TV show.
And it's the all-star orchestra because you cherry-pick some of the great players from all the...
There's a reason for everything. What I wanted to do, actually what we wanted to do, was have an orchestra that wasn't geographically located, which means it's not a New York show, it's not a Chicago, not a L.A. show, a Seattle show. It's a show we have musicians from L.A. and San Francisco, and from Seattle, from New York, and from Boston, and Philadelphia, and blah. All the orchestras, 32 major orchestras, we had almost a representative from every one. And so in a sense, it became America's orchestra. And it's just been an absolute thrill. And I continue to do it, I'm happy to say.
This is why such a dynamo like yourself is perfect for the Palm Beach Symphony, and what you've been doing in the few seasons that you've been here has been special.
What I didn't realize is what an extraordinary arts community Palm Beach is. More than any other place I've ever been, and of course I've been, L.A., Seattle, New York, those are my three main, Liverpool in England, Tokyo, of course, and so forth. But more than any other place, this audience are knowledgeable and committed. So when we have a little get-together after the concert, we're not talking about politics or about business. We're talking about art. We're talking about music. We're talking about performances. We're talking about artists. I've never experienced it quite to this degree. Because what happens in Palm Beach, as we said, there's some natives, but then a lot of people come from Chicago or from New York or Philadelphia or Baltimore or wherever, where they are involved with their home orchestras, and they come here quite sophisticated. And there's a visiting orchestra season at Kravitz, but we live here. I love this community. And so what's happened for me is this great thrill. I have one of the great music schools I'm a part of. I mean, I had no idea that the Frost School of Music is on the level that it is, which is as good as any in the country. And now we have an orchestra here in Palm Beach that represents the great classics like few in the country. And an audience that's vibrant and excited to be part of it.
Well, this past Masterworks season, as you call it, has been a great success. I was personally at the Garrick Olson concert. What a genius pianist he is. And I did the Meet Me in the Mezzanine program that you guys have started, where I tell my friends to meet me up in the mezzanine. We got a free glass of champagne and discounted tickets, and we have the best view of the orchestra from the mezzanine.
Sometimes the main floor, it's the place to be and so forth. But you're a little higher, you can see all the players, you can see who's playing what. In the case of Palm Beach, this is Palm Beach's orchestra, so the personnel remains pretty much the same. And so you look at your favorite people, but Nadine Asen, our first flute, or Craig Morris, our first drum, whoever they may be, and you can watch them and see them. And so I like being up above. The idea of Meet Me in the Mezzanine it was David McClymonts, our executive director. That's a fabulous idea because you get to know the personalities. Not only do you know how Garrick Olson plays, not only do you know how he looks because you're watching him on the stage, but now you know him.
You do a great program every month. The Palm Beach Symphony puts on Lunch and Learn. And there's one coming up on Thursday, May 15th.
These are wonderful events. We meet at the offices here right in Palm Beach, and there's a great boardroom. And there are a bunch of tables set, and a person, sometimes me, sometimes others, who talk about the program. It is an educational hour and a half, where, for example, I did one last month where I talked about orchestration. So you say to the audience of 30 people, we're going to talk about orchestration now. Of the 30, how many know what orchestration even is? Maybe half. But the ones that know, they don't mind being reminded. It's just fascinating. The thing about it is that I've done a couple, and I'm doing the one coming up. It's very hard for me because when I'm not doing it, I have my assistant conductors do it. and they're spectacular. And as I saw them the other day, the two that have already done it, and I said, "You make life miserable for me because you do so well. I have to live up to your, with PowerPoint and musical examples and video and audio. And it's
very high tech.
It's a thrill."
Well, now, of course, the orchestra performs at Kravis Center. Where are the lunch and learns held?
They're at the Palm Beach Symphony offices, which is right in downtown Palm Beach. It's very convenient and easy, by the way. Easy parking.
Now, you talked about education programs. Don't you sometimes send units to schools and directors?
We do so much. I don't know of any orchestra that does more than what we do in terms of what we call community outreach. I mean, I've gone to a number of middle school bands this year and talked to them and conducted them. We send chamber groups into the schools to play and to give lessons and to give classes. And we bring the students to us. And before the concert, we often have a student, could be a jazz group, could be a marching band, could be almost anything, to be a pre-concert. And even the Star Spangled Banner this year that we did, and we had all these high school students march down and play with us in Kravis. We get involved in the community. We also have this great program where we give away instruments. So anybody has old instruments in their attic, and it's shocking how many do, give them to us, we'll repair them, and we'll give them away. And so we've given away, thousands of instruments. We do every year, and we continue to do it. And we have a real commitment. And again, Olga Vasquez, who's our head of that department, is just incredible. And then we do our children's concerts. We do them for television. So now on our local South Florida Public Television, our children's concerts, our Peter and the Wolf, which is special with a new narration where everybody is working together rather than eating each other. We do a Cinderella where you don't get to marry the prince, but you get to play in the orchestra with the prince if you play the flute. And then we did one Carnival of More Animals, all about indigenous animals to Florida, with a new orchestration of the Sanson Carnival of the Animals, Chamber of Peace. I mean, it's a lot of, and then we do them all for television. And now we're developing a library of children's programs. So in the next few years, we'll probably have 10. Student body never ages, right? You're going to have 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds. They continue to be 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds. So we're very
recycled great stuff.
We're very committed to it.
Let's talk about this final concert of the season called the Encore. You've got the marvelous pianist Kevin Kenner, and it is Monday, May 19th. This has become a community concert with your side-by-side program. Tell us about that.
They call it an encore because we have a limited number of concerts that we do, and we're trying to expand it, as we should. There is the audience. There's the people want it. So we had a wonderful donor, Patrick Park, the Patrick Park Foundation, who made it possible for us to have a 7th program. So it's called the Encore. And Kevin Kenner is one of the great pianists alive today. He is especially known for Chopin. He won the Chopin competition. He runs the Chopin competition here. He's just an extraordinary artist. And so we asked him, would you do the Chopin concerto, either one or two? He just said, I'll do the second. Perfect. So now we have that set. Now, because it's an added concert, not part of the regular season, I had to make sure that we have something everybody really wants to hear. What's the most famous piece in the world? Probably the Beethoven Fifth Symphony. So that's what we have. And the board said, okay, fine. Come up with something that makes it really even more community-oriented. And our fantastic staff came up with the idea of doing what we call side-by-side. So we're going to play the Brahms Academic Festival Overture. Wonderful overture by Brahms, played by our orchestra. Except our orchestra playing the Brahms probably be 70 people. We've invited anyone who plays an instrument who's able to come and join us.
Can I join?
You sure can. And we already, I think, have 40 or 50 coming. And what if you're a string player, it's easy. You just play in the section.
How do you get so many people on the stage?
Kravis is quite a big stage. We just have to expand it out. I mean, it's amazing.
It's got to be like a happening.
That's right, and it's for a lot of students, of course. But it's also, you can come and play in the trumpet section. All you have to do is tell us, you're studying, and your teacher says you're okay. you're in. And then we have it all marked exactly when you're supposed to play, parts in advance. So it becomes a happening for the
start
community.
Practicing immediately.
That's right. You have to get that those notes, nice, soft, beautiful notes.
Now, people can go to palmbeachsymphony.org, all spelled out, and learn all about what's going on, what's happening. Now, next season is kind of not that far off. Now, you've got to be lining up, thinking about things. Anything you can reveal about what's in store for the next season?
For me, of course, we've made a bunch of programs of great violin soloists. Misha Dichter, great piano soloist. Alyssa Wallerstein, a great cello. So we have many, as always, many great soloists. But then we also have the great repertoire. The Holst Planets we're going to do. We're doing the Alpine, this is when you'll love, Alpine Symphony of Richard Strauss, Brahms' Third Symphony. There's so much, Pines of Rome, of Respighi, so much great music. And then, of course, American music, as we always do. We're going to do a piece of Paul Moravec, Pulitzer Prize winner. He wrote a piece I just premiered at Frost called Miami Variations. And so it was so successlike, we're going to do it here. So we continue to do...
It's the 250th anniversary of the country.
We're concocting a special, like an encore program of American music, yet to be announced, where you take some of the greatest, whether it's the Lincoln Portrait of Copland or Star Wars of John Williams or
Charles Ives
or exactly it's just we've come up with a really great and some Gershwin, come up with a great program of Americana, and our idea, and it's not etched in stone yet, is to make it a huge community celebration of the anniversary of the country and make it available and free to everyone. So that's what we're hoping for.
Well, Maestro Schwarz, thanks for joining us today. If you're enjoying this series, please share it with your friends, family, and on social media. You can watch all the episodes anytime at palmbeachcivic.org. Until the next time, I'm Bob Merrill. Thank you for watching.